You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I know I'm looking a little different than Mike, but I'm here to intro everybody in for our end of year show. So as always, I'm Jay from the SC, and with me as always is
Shannon G and Mesa AZ.
There you go. Unfortunately, and we'll tell you all about it, but unfortunately Mike isn't with us at this present time. And we'll go into that in a little bit, but in the meantime, Shannon, do you have any news for our end of year show?
Yeah, actually, got a couple of things. Sure.
Okay.
So first of all, we've got AEF is coming up in February 6th through the 8th, which we're all excited about.
Nice.
And we opened registration up. I was amazed. Like in the first day, I got like 6 registrations. It was crazy. Just boom, boom, boom. So that's a good indicator that people are interested and glad it's coming up. So I was excited to see that. And I started getting actual raffle prizes in the mail already.
Oh, nice.
From a couple of our sponsors and vendors. So D280 RC, which we actually had on the show last year, they're definitely back for being a great sponsor, providing some of their afterburner lights and things. So we're excited about that. And one of our longtime sponsors, eFlux RC, sending out some great stuff for the EDF guys, and more to come. It's just always, we kind of push it out now and start getting responses, actually more in the new year after the holidays, but it was exciting just to get a couple. And I got some other emails. Yeah, we'll talk to you as soon as the new year's here. So we're really excited. We have the logo. I got stickers made already. We're going to have shirts as always. I think Eddie, my good old buddy Eddie's going to be making these shirts. We were talking about doing what I did for the Jet Rally where we printed them ourselves, but Eddie was like, "No, I don't think I want to do the shirts," because that's kind of his thing for that. So really excited about it. And again, for everybody who wants to be a part of it out here in Mesa, Arizona, February 6th to the 8th, it's $60 for the whole weekend. Includes the raffle, pizza party. We got the night fly. We got the noontime air show that is always a real crowd pleaser. We get a real good amount of fans and spectators for that. We're serving our own food now, which we started at the Jet Rally, and that worked out really well. So yeah, rather than having food vendors, we still have Katie comes out with coffee in the morning, at least on Saturday. But we started to try, we got a grill and everything, started having a couple of the club members said, "Hey, let's do the food ourselves." And so far it's working really good. And we will definitely have to expand because we ran out of food the Friday and Saturday that we did it for the Jet Rally.
That's a terrible problem to have.
Oh, I know. But, it's just like, okay, guys, whatever you did Friday, double it, which they did. And they're like, "Oh, we could have probably done a little more." I'm like, well, double plus. And then I told them, okay, for AEF, it's double what you did on Saturday for Friday, and double plus what you do for that on Saturday, and we should be good. So we actually haven't even got we got a freezer that we keep in the little registration booth there. We plug it in so we can keep all the food nice and cold, so they don't have to go. Hopefully, don't have to go running for food every 5 minutes, which they kind of did last time. But we're really excited, and again, hope you guys make it out, and we'll talk more about what some challenges might be with that. But as I mentioned, the night fly. The other thing is I'm always looking for a new night flyer. I love night flying aircraft. I had my little slow stick, which I literally just sold a couple hours ago. Kate picked it up. But if you guys didn't see it on Hobby King, they came out with the new Flybeam 2. And the Flybeam, I had one of the original ones, and it was a fun airplane. It was heavy. The wing weighed a ton compared to what, for a foam plane, but it had like the old school PCB board LED lights, and it just was a ton. It'd fly, but it was, landing was always kind of clodding down the runway, and it was like, you could barely get it to do a roll, but it flew. You could see the lights. But the new version, totally same basic plane, but they used a lighter foam, and they put much lighter but brighter lights on it. And I got one and just got it the other day, set it up, took out and flew it. I didn't even have to put 2 clicks of trim in I think maybe one click for elevator, one for aileron, and then I clicked back. So it's like one click of real. It's like, I'll get back the other way. So I got 3 flights on it. Just flies like a little dream. Actually, it's real sporty, real agile. It does, loops, rolls, all the stuff, and actually did a little hover with it. It's kind of fun. So excited to have that plane ready for AEF and any other night flights we have. So thumbs up for the new Hobby King Flybeam if you're looking for a cool little night flyer. And it's really cheap. It was like $169, and I think they did a deal if you bought a battery. It was like they took off a few bucks from what the original price was for the battery.
Nice.
So it's cool.
Well, that's one thing I love about Hobby King. When they bring out their little brand of planes or whatever it is, or not gimmicks, but because I have a gyrocopter by them and a few other planes, and what I like is they're kind of innovating when you get them, but like you said, they may have some problems, like they're really heavy or they just did something goofy.
Mm-hmm.
But they listen to their customers because people will complain about it and talk about it. And then when they come out with a version 2 or 3, they definitely make improvements along the way, and they try to fix whatever problems people were, yapping about. So I can really appreciate for them what they do for us, and by improving their plane. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how well that plane flies, because I saw the old one. Neat idea, but it wasn't. It didn't do it for me.
The only
anxious to see it.
The only problem, and it wasn't really a problem, but so when you get the box, it comes just like in a cardboard box, and then the foam's got the top's covered with just a piece of cardboard with the logo of the plane on it, and then you open it up and there's the foam and there's the plane in the foam box. There's a piece of paper, and it's got like the basics. It's got it's got the CG, it's got the weight, stuff like that, and then it gives you a QR code. Go to the QR code and it'll take you right to the instruction manual. Well, you click on the QR code with your phone, and it goes to the database of manuals for Hobby King. They didn't have the manual for the Flybeam 2 yet. It wasn't there.
Oh.
So it was fairly easy to put together. I mean, I had one before. It was almost the same. It was like 2 wing panels, and there was like a piece of wood. It's cut, grooved in. It fits right in there. So you had to glue that in there, and then like the rudder and elevator, you had to glue those in and then connect them. So it was pretty straightforward. And obviously, the thing flew straight as an arrow, so I did something right. But it was just like, I put the landing gear on. That was the only other thing in the prop. Other than that, it's, turnkey. Nice. It was so. Right. So that's kind of the business out of the way. Let's get to the, why is Michael not here with us today?
Okay, so for a bunch of our listeners who've been listening to us through the years, the Christmas holiday seems to be cursed for us. Although the holiday time is fun and everything, but just situations seem to happen to us during the Christmas time. Somebody gets hurt, somebody in the family gets hurt, something happens to somebody's house, or just a variety of things just occur right around holidays, New Year, that just kind of comes out and bites us. And of all things, this particular season, we weren't thinking anything bad could pop out and happen, especially, the other day, Mike, me, and AK Mike and his brother were playing video games and doing stuff. And the very next day, Mike was going to be leaving to be going out to spend time with his son and granddaughters out with the relatives out in California. They were going to jump in the camper and drive out there. And all of us, get a cryptic text from Mike and says, "I burned my shop down," little angry emojis, and that's it. And we're all like,
what?
Burned his shop down. And I'm just thinking, yeah. Like, what did he have? His little scented candles, and it caught like a couple of pieces of paper on fire. What do you mean he burned his shop down?
Was he playing with the wood with the wood burner? Like it is enough?
We had no idea.
We don't know.
It wasn't like prior to that. He's like, "Oh, I'm building." Like usually, if we're building things or whatever, we're like, "Hey, look what I'm doing," or "Hey, I'm having a problem with this." Nothing. It was just out of the blue. I burned my shop down. Okay, so I call him. I text him a few things. Nothing.
Same here.
And so we all kind of went about our day, the rest of the day. And then later on, I get a text from Arlie, that says, "Hey, I'm sending out a mass text to you guys. Something horrible happened. Mike was Mike was out working on some stuff, and then, the fire alarm went off in the house. And the next thing I know, Mike comes running in and he goes, the shop is on fire. Get out of the house. And then, all mayhem broke loose. And I'm like, what? And as I'm reading through this thing, she's like, yeah, a neighbor came by and helped Mike, and they ran into the shop to fight the fire. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, once again, I'm thinking, like, how big is this fire? How, you just don't know. And then she's like writing in there, she goes, yeah. And then, out of all things, as you're reading down through the thing, she goes, oh yeah. Then he came out, and then said something to me, and then he collapsed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he collapsed. And I'm thinking, oh, smoke inhalation or something, right? And then she's like, thank goodness the paramedics were there. I screamed for them. They came over and they immediately started CPR on Mike. And I'm like, CPR, like, whoa, that's not like a couple of candles burning. I mean, if they're doing CPR on Mike, and then it kind of said, oh yeah. And they took him off to the hospital. And I'm just like, wow. So at this point, I'm texting her, I'm texting everybody else, the information that she sent me to see if anybody else has heard anything. I didn't hear back from her for a little while. And then finally, she came back and, gave some info. Oh, we're at the hospital. They're working on Mike right now. Basically his heart stopped one time, and they luckily had the machine. They brought it over and they restarted his heart, threw him in the ambulance, blah, 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 blah. Took him off to the hospital. I'm like, holy crap, his heart stopped.
Wow.
Normally for, most fires, your heart doesn't stop. What's up with that? And my wife's like in the background, she's like, oh, well, I read something that if you inhale smoke, it's a common thing for people to for having a heart attack or have things happen, for their hearts to stop. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So once again, we're kind of in the dark. We don't know what's going on. And everybody's texting me, hey, did you hear anything else? And I'm like, no. I'm sure Mike's wife is, overwhelmed with people, calling and asking questions. So it must not be bad, no news is good news type of thing. So hopefully, it's not immediate that, this is super serious, bad type of stuff. So, the next morning, I woke up, and then I sent her a text, asked her how she was doing and if she had any more info on Mike. And then she relayed back, well, they're going to do what did she say? A cath. Yeah, he's going off to the cath lab. And I'm like, a cath lab? I'd never heard that term before. So I'm thinking they're going to put a catheter in him, so, he's like unconscious and he hasn't peed. So they got to put a catheter in him, okay. Well, I've never heard of that before, but okay. And, and then, our thing kind of fell off. And then I was talking with the fellas as to what they think happened, or, how the fire started, or what was going on, or what anybody heard. And we just didn't have any information. And then my wife popped up and she goes, hey, I got a picture, I had this little, thing from the news, kind of showing what's going on. And so we'll put that picture up to show what happened to his shop. And once again, I kind of had my idea of what a fire would look like in his shop. You've been in there and saw how big it is and everything.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And then that little clip that I sent out, or that I got, dude, it was quite devastating.
It's gone. Everything is
I've
gone.
seen similar fires like that in the Air Force with like crashes and whatever, but
yeah,
it was quite like a flash fire. Like, it was intense. Yeah. It was hot, and it scorched everything.
Yeah.
The roof, like Mike had ceiling panels in the roof, and they were all gone. And you see the rafters. You could see the top of the roof and the insulation of the roof, and it wasn't scorched. That was fine, but everything else below the roof line, it looked like somebody had flamethrower, just flamed over everything.
Because you have to think, there's, it was his RC shop. There was a lot of things that were definitely flammable. One of the things were probably, but I mean, like, volatilely flammable. Maybe that's probably the better word. But of course, probably the biggest thing, and which we're all well aware of, and I'm sure we'll talk about down the road, is lipo batteries. We don't know if that's
lipo bombs. Yes,
yeah,
fire bombs.
we don't know if that's a cause of it, but it definitely just them being in the vicinity.
It did not help.
No, because once those go, you have a hard time getting them out, which we all are well aware of. So, but yeah, that picture when I saw that, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, And for those of you that have, you've always seen Mike kind of shop in the background, and you see a plane up on the table, you see a plane on the wall. What you don't see all the time is he's got his printers, his 3D printers. He's got his paint shop. He's got his DCS combat simulator set up. That was in there, right? The giant screen TVs to play those things on in his games. And underneath those tables were probably dozens of airplane kits. So, some definitely, unobtainium now. He collected them over there. So
UMXs, GWS planes, a bunch of the more park fly stuff would be underneath that, stacked up underneath that stuff.
Because I know for a fact he had like a brand new in the box Cermark F-18. Yeah. Which that's you can't get that anymore, and and you'll have a hard time. The other good thing that we mentioned the RV, or you mentioned the RV earlier. The RV was outside because the RV garage is basically the RV garage is kind of the edge of the house, and then his shop, and then it goes into the house. And the RV was outside because they were getting it ready for go out
to California for Christmas.
Yeah. So there were things that were in his garage, his RV garage shop. He has a lot of things stacked in there. So there's a lot of airplanes that were still in there. Those were okay. There was obviously smoke. They probably smell like who knows what kind of smoke, but but there's still he still has some airplanes that escaped the inferno.
Well, for some of his, he definitely lost a couple of the big jets. But like a couple that we always saw in the background that he was working on, they were actually saved because he was going to go fly that afternoon. So he'd already put them in the trailer. Yep. So he had a bunch of planes in the trailer. Unfortunately, I think one of the things that he did lose was his A-10. I think that I think you said that got damaged or got destroyed. But
Big Mike's Cessna did survive. It was in the trailer, thank goodness. Yes. So that was like, the most important thing is we're just glad Mike's okay. I mean, that's the most important thing.
Well, the story goes on, I mean, this is already a terrible accident and just, terrible for this guy to happen to his house. Yeah. So today, I got woken up, the phone rings, and it's Mike, and he's on the phone. And I'm like, so he sounds all hoarse because they had intubated him, so he's all hoarse from that. And so I asked him what was going on, how the story went, because once again, I got Arlee's side of the story, but now I get to actually hear from him. And so he goes, yeah, man, I heard the fire alarm go off, kind of heard of an explosion. I kind of, whatever. I went running up to the house, and the window, there's one window in the back, was already, I couldn't see in there. It was so much smoke, and it was all smoked over and everything. So I went to the house, and I, told Arlee to, get out of the house, grab the dog, get out of the house. Where's the other dog? And so he went around opening up doors to let the smoke out and everything. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So, why did you run back into the shop? And he goes, I didn't run back into the shop. It was a blazing inferno. I didn't walk in there. And I go, oh, good. Well, thank goodness. Because Arlee said, like, you jumped in there with a little garden hose, you're squirting, a little water on the fire type thing, And he goes, no, I didn't do that. I just went in the house, was checking out, where everybody was and opening up doors and doing whatever, and got out of there. And then I was running from one side of the house to the other, to the front where Arlee was. He goes, I felt weird. I felt something coming on, and I walked right up to her and I said, I'll see you later. And then he passed out. So he said his goodbyes to his wife, and then, passed out. And then he was awake, like, 5-10 minutes later. They shocked his heart, and then he woke up again. And he's like, what's going on? And then they threw him in the ambulance. And then I guess, his heart stopped again. They had to shock him two or three more times after that because, his heart was stopping.
Well, it wasn't the ambulance.
Yeah, remember? He was in the ambulance when that was happening. And then... But
didn't they... Oh, go ahead.
And then they called the Life Flight to come land out there to come pick him up. And so Life Flight came out and said, we can't land. We can't land here on this property. So they went up by, he has that park that's up near his house, right? So they drove him up there, and then the helicopter was able to land, and they got him on board, flew him right over to the Scottsdale hospital that's up there, got him in, and they were able to get him, stabilized. So, so from a horrific story of my friend dying, two or three times, during this course of this thing. So like I said, his wife said that they had to take him to, they were taking him into the cath lab. So this is the part that's kind of, it's funny to me, but I thought, like I said, I thought he had to pee, right? So that's why they took him to the cath lab to get, give him a catheter. Well, no, the cath lab is where they go and they put a camera in your veins, and they go looking, through your veins to make sure everything's cool. And so basically that was what was going on. And they found, they have this term is called a widowmaker vein. And it's a vein on the front of your heart that basically supplies blood flow to your heart. And so basically that was like 90% clogged. And so something broke free, took away the last 10%, and then, Mike fell out. So they were able to put in a stent, do the surgery on him for that, saved his life, and, he stabilized. So I was like, holy crap. So I said, so basically the fire saved your life. And he goes, yeah, the fire was horrible and terrible, but it saved my life, because if the fire hadn't happened, maybe not right away, but him driving to California, something might have happened, and, he could have had a heart attack then. Worse yet, he could have been flying, came back to work and was flying. Mm-hmm. And that's, normally when that stuff always happens, when you're doing that kind of stuff, could have had a thing up in the air, been 30,000 feet. And then, you're not getting back on the ground, and they're not landing at the hospital. Like I said, everything that happened for Mike happened in sequence, happened perfect. 2-minute response for the paramedics to get to him, shock him, get him into the ambulance, drive him up to the air flight, get him to the hospital in under 20 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah,
and then
amazing.
They were working on him, right? So as opposed to being anywhere else, it would have been lights out for him. Yeah. So it was a miracle that he was saved by his house catching on fire. Now, it probably contributed to him having the episode, because him overstressing himself, running around trying to, deal with the fire, helped egg this thing on. I'm sure he got a little bit of smoke inhalation that it just all, accumulated. But in a weird sort of way, him having this fire saved his life. One of those odd stories.
It sure is. And so Jay talked to him, and then about 2 hours ago, I got a call from Michael, and I picked right up, and just was so glad to hear his voice. A little hoarse, but kind of relayed the same thing about what happened, and I was just so thankful to hear that we still got him. With the airplane stuff, the house, that's all can be. It's at some point replaced, but we couldn't replace Mike.
Nope.
And I go, you guys have been friends much longer than me, but we're all one big family now, and that would have been really hard. So
yeah, especially because of this time of the year, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Who expects their friend's house to catch on fire? It's such a drastic fire. Nobody.
So we don't have the exact cause of it or anything. I'm sure that'll come down the road, but we definitely know we're. If anything, just making sure if you have lipos, they're able to be kept as far from fire as possible. We'll definitely do that. So, because my wife kept asking me, she's like, what is that going to happen to us? I'm like, well, I try to keep, I can't guarantee anything. Anything can happen. Who knows what can happen with causing a fire? So, but so it's been a crazy, 2 days, 2.5, 3 days.
It just happened a couple of days ago. So
Friday was it Friday afternoon? I think it was Friday afternoon when we got the message. So I can tell you, yesterday I think I got the picture Friday night. Marcely sent me the picture of the room, the shop, and I was like, wow. And I was kind of bummed about that. And then just started hearing, when I actually heard ICU and all this, I was like, oh my gosh. So it was a rough day for me, but just to talk to him today was was a Christmas miracle for me. So I was glad to hear that.
Well, I guess it is. Even though it's not Christmas yet, it is kind of a Christmas miracle.
It's Festivus. It's a Festivus miracle.
It's a Festivus miracle.
and now for the airing of grievances.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But
like I said,
Jay's
it is a story of irony, I guess. Like I said, my house catching on fire, it saved my life. That type of thing. Yeah, just kind of a crazy story.
Right up, it sounds like a Hallmark movie almost.
Yeah,
but
yeah, kind of. So, and like I said, it's one of those things too with this Widowmaker vein, a type of incident. You don't know until you don't know. I mean, the guy gets flight physicals, every other year type of thing. Every year getting a flight physical, but it's one of those things that wouldn't show up on an EKG. It wouldn't show up, in normal things. Yeah. Unless you did like a CAT scan or you did something like that, would you see this? Even see that you had that problem? So it's kind of like a couple of years ago, my juggler van, I had the exact same thing. 90% of it, I was having these migraine. I've never had headaches ever, and all of a sudden I started having these migraine headaches. Going to see my doctor, she's working on me, and all of a sudden I have one of these episodes, and boom. Yeah, I'm super dizzy. I'm having these things. They rush me off to the, give me an ambulance, rush me off there. And then they, go ahead and scan me. And they're like, oh yeah, your artery's totally clogged up, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, why am I not dead? And the guy's like, your brain reroutes how to get blood back down from there. And because he goes, I was going to put I would have put a stent in that if I'd known it was there earlier. And I'm like, well, how would you know it was there earlier? How to get tested for stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things. Oh, and the other thing Mike told me was that he knew he was getting the symptoms for having this heart attack. Previously, the night before, a couple of days before, he was getting signs. And it was one of those things he really didn't know what he just thought he was having some indigestion. He thought that, he was just having his heart was racing. He just figured he was, excited. He just, this, that, and the other thing. And all those little clues, it's just like something like, it seems like, men, when they get over the age of 50, need to have a little bit of education as to, here are the signs that you may be having, that you may be close to having a heart attack or whatever, and spelling it out for us, because we ignore things like that. And that's kind of like what Mike did. He just, that's gas. Oh, that's whatever. Yeah. Oh, I'm just a little excited. Oh, my blood pressure's up a bit. I'll just relax. It'll come back down. Oh, that's close enough. Yeah. And it was just like all these tick, 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 tick.
Yep.
And he just ignored it. So,
yeah,
a little bit of ignorance on all our parts. So, not to turn this into a PSA for, having yourself checked out for a possible heart attack, but it's something that, you might want to look into.
Yep, definitely. Well, we definitely were able to fill a half hour.
Well, yeah, most definitely.
With all this. So, again, most importantly, we're just glad Mike's, he'll be back at some point. So, we're gonna take a little hiatus. I had actually posted, we were not knowing on what was going on. I actually posted, we probably wouldn't have a show up on Tuesday, but I think we will. So we'll correct that at least on the Facebook page, so people know that we're still here and we're still going. But we'll keep you updated. I'm sure Mike will want to chime in at some point when he's feeling a little better. So maybe we'll have who knows what. But currently he doesn't have a computer or all of the podcast gear, because that was all on the. It's all little puddles of metal and plastic that probably won't quite work the same way. So, but we'll definitely keep everybody up to date. So with that, I'm going to say, Merry Christmas to everybody and Happy Holidays when whatever you may celebrate. We'll definitely be back, with something in the future, but we just want to get this in before the year goes. You can always send us messages to our Facebook page. You can comment on our YouTube channel, send messages to our email on the website, Parkfire Podcast. If you want to send any well wishes to Mike and family, I'm sure they'll be well appreciated.
Yeah, you greatly appreciate it.
Yeah. So, but with that, I'll let Jay close out the show.
Well, this is Jay from the SC.
And Shannon G. and Mason.
There you go. Hey, have a Merry Christmas and a good New Year.
And we'll see you at the park.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.